Penn State seems to always be producing incredible defensive talent. This year alone, they have multiple corners who are going to be drafted, 2 edge rushers, and a pretty solid linebacker who's the subject of today's video. Manny Diaz has done an incredible job coaching this defense, and this year, linebacker Curtis Jacobs is one of the more slept-on linebacker prospects. A player who has some solid athletic traits and some solid coverage traits. Where should the Nittany Lions linebacker be selected in the draft? That is what we will be talking about in today's video. But hey guys, if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment and let me know which players you guys want to see me talk about in the next video, and stay tuned as I unveil my top 10 linebackers. But without further ado, let's take a closer look at Curtis Jacobs. Jacobs comes with a lot of experience to an NFL roster, but his numbers on paper aren't going to jump off the page at you necessarily. In 2022, Jacobs finished the season with 52 total tackles, 4 sacks, an interception, and a pass deflection. His 2023 season didn't quite have the same numbers as he finished with 50 total tackles, 2.5 sacks. A player who tested out pretty well at the NFL Draft Combine, and this is a guy who some people think could be one of the steals at the linebacker position. I think, despite not having the most amazing numbers, he has some interesting upside. When you talk about coverage linebackers, Curtis Jacobs is one of the best in the entire draft class. In both man-to-man coverage and zone coverage, Jacobs is a player who thrives. Jacobs has incredible use of hands and shows a great initial punch in man coverage to slow the receiver down, and from there, he does a very good job of picking him up. He matches up extremely well against tight ends or running backs, and I love to see that from him. But on top of that, he shows good tools in zone coverage as well. He reads the quarterback's eyes, and he has the quickness to dissect the play and react quickly. A team that is going to be drafting Jacobs is drafting him due to his abilities to be an immediate starter in coverage, and he has that on lock. As an athlete, Jacobs has some pretty solid movement skills as a whole. He has solid quickness and speed, and I like to see that from him. My big issue with Jacobs is his change of direction. It is inconsistent. If he could move a little more fluidly, and if his hips were a bit more fluid, I think he could easily be one of the top linebackers, but we haven't seen it on a consistent enough basis. The upside is there, but we still got question marks about him. Jacobs also has some decent size as well, being 6'1", 241 pounds, and I think he has the tools and the coverage abilities that make him a very scheme-versatile player. As good as Jacobs is in coverage, his run defense is a major issue for me. In play-action opportunities, Jacobs was slow to dissect the play, leading to him being a bit slow and susceptible to being beat on outside runs. When Jacobs was asked to come downhill and defend the run, he had 2 major issues. He would overshoot the gaps at times, and he would miss the tackle altogether, or he would be met with a blocker, and he really didn't have the tools necessarily to shed the blockers. As a run defender, he is extremely unpolished, and I have some pretty major concerns on how that's going to translate to the NFL. His instincts are just lacking a bit, whether it be in play action, on counter plays. He just doesn't have the highest football IQ, and I think that's something that's very important for a linebacker to possess. While I think he is excellent in coverage, the change of direction concerns and the concerns as a run defender loom large for Jacobs, and he is my number 11 linebacker. The upside is there without a question, but he still is extremely unpolished, and I have quite a few questions about how his skill set is going to translate. Jacobs can play a middle linebacker or an outside linebacker, and really any scheme you want. His abilities in both man coverage and zone coverage make him an extremely versatile piece on the defensive side of the ball, and I think he can fit in nearly any defense in the NFL. My comparison for Curtis Jacobs is Buffalo Bills linebacker Terrell Bernard. Bernard is an excellent linebacker, particularly in the coverage game, and that's exactly what I think Curtis Jacobs is going to be. He isn't the greatest run defender, but the tools he shows to match up with the other team's tight ends or running backs makes him a very valuable piece, and that's exactly what Bernard has done for Buffalo. They both have very similar size, and I think their skill set is very comparable. Curtis Jacobs can cover, but he has some concerns in the run and athletically as well. I think he's going to be a good player, but he isn't a player who's going to do everything for you. I think he's kind of just going to be a coverage linebacker at the next level, and that's fine. There is a role for that. Ultimately, I believe Curtis Jacobs will be a 5th round pick in the 2024 NFL Draft.